When an empath starts to fight back, this is a downfall that the narcissist experiences. Have you ever felt like you gave everything, your time, your energy, your love, to someone who only took and never gave back? Someone who made you question yourself, doubt your worth, and feel responsible for their happiness, even when they hurt you. If that sounds familiar, there's a strong chance you've been involved with a narcissist. But here's the good news. If you're an empath, an emotionally intuitive, caring person, you have something they don't: strength, depth, and resilience. And when you finally decide to stop absorbing their chaos and start standing up for yourself, something powerful happens. Not just for you, but for them too. Because when an empath fights back, the narcissist doesn't just lose control. They begin to unravel. In this video, we're going to explore what happens when empaths reclaim their power and set boundaries. We'll look at how the narcissist reacts, why they react that way, and most importantly, what it means for your healing journey. This isn't about revenge or aggression. It's about self-preservation. It's about understanding the psychological impact of an empath's resistance on a narcissistic personality. And it's based entirely on behavioral psychology, not theories, not assumptions, but real patterns observed by experts. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why fighting back works, how it shakes the foundation of the narcissist world, and what you can do to protect yourself while staying true to your empathic nature. Let's start with something important. Empaths are not weak. In fact, they're some of the strongest people in any relationship. They often absorb emotional pain, give second chances, and try to help others heal, even when they themselves are being hurt. But this natural tendency to care, to forgive, and to believe in people is exactly what narcissists exploit. At first, the narcissist sees the empath as a source of admiration, support, and emotional fuel. They're drawn to the empath's warmth, compassion, and ability to sense what others need. But over time, they begin to take advantage of that sensitivity. They manipulate, guilt trip, gaslight, and drain the empath emotionally because they know the empath will keep giving, keep trying, keep hoping things will change. That's why many empaths stay far longer than they should in toxic relationships. Not because they enjoy the pain, but because they believe in connection, growth, and redemption. Unfortunately, narcissists rarely change unless forced to, and even then, only temporarily. So what happens when an empath stops playing along? When they stop absorbing the blame, stop reacting to the drama, and stop allowing a narcissist to dictate their emotions? They take away the narcissist's power. The first thing a narcissist feels when an empath starts to fight back is confusion. For so long, they believed they were in control. They thought they had figured out the empath, that they could predict every reaction, manipulate every emotion, and twist every boundary. But suddenly, the empath isn't falling into the same traps anymore. They're not apologizing for things they didn't do. They're not flinching when accused. They're not rushing to fix things or soothe the narcissist's ego. This throws the narcissist off balance. Because without that predictable response, the empathy, the guilt, the concern, their usual tactics don't work. And when their methods fail, they panic. Second, the narcissist begins to feel fear. Not the kind of fear you or I might feel before a big decision, but a deep, primal fear of exposure. Because narcissists build their identities on the reactions of others. Without constant validation, admiration, or emotional engagement from the empath, they start to feel invisible, and that terrifies them. Empaths, especially those who are spiritually grounded or emotionally mature, tend to radiate calmness and clarity. When they stop feeding into the chaos, the narcissist world becomes silent and empty. There's no one left to mirror their emotions, validate their stories, or provide the emotional fuel they crave. And in that silence, the narcissist begins to see the truth. They are not as powerful or special as they pretend to be. Third, the narcissist tries to regain control through manipulation. They may come back with apologies, promises of change, or even dramatic declarations of love. But these are not signs of genuine remorse. They're survival tactics. They're trying to lure the empath back into the cycle so they can resume control. Some narcissists go further. They smear the empath's name, spread lies, or try to turn mutual friends and family against them. Others resort to threats, guilt trips, or passive-aggressive attacks. All of it is meant to provoke a reaction, to remind the empath that they still have power. But here's the thing. Once an empath learns to recognize these tactics, they become immune to them. And that's when the real downfall begins. Fourth, the narcissist experiences emotional disorientation. Without the empath's energy to stabilize their own chaotic inner world, they begin to spiral. Their moods swing more violently. Their insecurities rise to the surface, and their need for external validation becomes desperate. This is often when they seek out new sources of supply, new people to manipulate, new relationships to exploit. But no matter how many new victims they find, none of them can replace the depth and emotional richness of the empath they lost. And so, they remain unsatisfied, restless, and increasingly unstable. Fifth, the narcissist's false image starts to crack. Empaths often see through the mask early on, but they rarely speak out. They hope the person will change. They want to believe the best in others. But when they finally walk away and refuse to engage, the narcissist's carefully curated image begins to unravel. Friends, co-workers, and even family members start to notice inconsistencies. The narcissist's exaggerated stories don't add up. Their sudden mood swings seem unprovoked. Their inability to accept criticism looks more and more like a character flaw rather than a quirk. And slowly, people begin to question the narrative the narcissist has built around themselves. 6. The narcissist loses their audience. One of the main reasons narcissists behave the way they do is because they crave attention. Whether it's admiration, outrage, sympathy, or even anger, they need a reaction. But when the empath walks away and refuses to participate in the emotional drama, the narcissist is left with fewer and fewer people willing to listen. Over time, this isolation eats away at them. Without anyone to feed their ego or reinforce their distorted reality, they become more erratic, more aggressive, and more disconnected from the world around them. Their attempts to regain control become more obvious, more desperate, and less effective. 7th, the narcissist begins to experience internal collapse. Psychologists call this narcissistic injury, a deep emotional wound caused by rejection, failure, or loss of status. But when the injury comes from someone like an empath, someone who once saw their vulnerabilities and chose to love them anyway, it cuts deeper than anything else. The realization that the empath no longer believes in them, no longer fears them, and no longer cares enough to play their games is devastating. It shatters their illusion of superiority and leaves them exposed to the very feelings they spent a lifetime running from: shame, inadequacy, and emptiness. 8th, the narcissist often spirals into self-destructive behavior. Without the stabilizing presence of the empath, they may turn to substance abuse, reckless relationships, or other harmful coping mechanisms. Some become obsessed with getting revenge, spending years plotting ways to hurt the empath or ruin their life. Others retreat into bitterness and resentment, blaming everyone but themselves for their failures. 9th, the narcissist becomes increasingly paranoid. As their world shrinks and their influence fades, they begin to suspect betrayal everywhere. They assume others are talking about them, mocking them, or conspiring against them. This paranoia leads to more conflict, more accusations, and more isolation. 10th, the narcissist reaches a breaking point. Either they double down on their toxic behaviors, becoming more controlling and manipulative than ever before, or they implode under the weight of their own instability. Either way, the result is the same. They become harder to deal with, less functional, and more dangerous. 11th, the empath, meanwhile, begins to heal. With each passing day, they grow stronger, clearer, and more grounded. They no longer carry the emotional burden of the narcissist's chaos. They no longer waste energy trying to fix someone who refuses to change. And most importantly, they learn to trust themselves again. 12th, the empath gains clarity about their own value. For so long, the narcissist made them feel small, flawed, and unworthy. But now, free from that influence, they begin to see the truth. They were never a problem. They were simply too loving, too kind, and too forgiving for someone who couldn't appreciate them. 13th, the empath reconnects with their purpose. Many empaths are deeply spiritual, creative, or service-oriented individuals. But during the time they were entangled with a narcissist, they may have lost touch with their passions, their goals, and their sense of direction. Now, they begin to rediscover who they truly are and what they're capable of. 14th, the empath builds healthier connections. Once they break free from the narcissist grip, they start attracting people who reflect their values, respect their boundaries, and support their growth. These relationships are authentic, nurturing, and fulfilling, everything the previous one was not. And finally, the empath reaches a place of deep inner peace, one that wasn't possible while they were still entangled in the narcissist's web of manipulation and emotional chaos. This peace doesn't come suddenly or dramatically. It unfolds slowly, like the first rays of sunlight after a long, dark night. At first, it might feel unfamiliar, like a forgotten memory trying to return. But with time, the empath begins to notice real changes within themselves. They start sleeping more soundly, breathing more deeply, and moving through life with a sense of calm they hadn't felt in years. They no longer live on high alert, waiting for the next insult, betrayal, or emotional ambush. Instead, they begin to live from a place of truth, authenticity, and self-awareness. They learn that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of clarity. And for the first time in a long while, they see their life clearly. They understand who they are, what they deserve, and how much strength it took to walk away. That understanding brings not just relief, but also empowerment. The fear that once controlled them, the fear of being blamed, criticized, or abandoned, begins to fade because they now know they can handle whatever comes their way. They've already survived the worst, and they emerge stronger for it. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It came after countless moments of choosing themselves over drama, silence over argument, and healing over resentment. Each boundary they set, each time they walked away instead of reacting, built a new foundation beneath them, a foundation of self-respect, self-love, and emotional resilience. And as that foundation grew stronger, so did they. All of this was made possible by one powerful decision: the empath's choice to fight back, not in an aggressive or vengeful way, but by standing firm in their truth, setting boundaries, and refusing to be pulled back into the cycle of emotional manipulation. That choice may have been terrifying at first, especially if they had spent years trying to make the relationship work, try to believe in change, trying to give love without limits. But when they finally decided to stop absorbing the narcissist's chaos and started protecting their own energy, everything began to shift. That single act, choosing themselves, set off a chain reaction that ultimately led to the narcissist's downfall. Because narcissists rely on others to validate their existence, to fuel their ego, and to absorb their emotional instability. When the empath stopped giving them that power, the narcissist was left exposed. Their usual tactics failed. Their manipulations fell flat. Their false image cracked under the weight of reality. And the more the empath stood in their truth, the less control the narcissist had. But this journey wasn't about defeating someone else. It was about reclaiming their own life. The empath didn't fight back to hurt the narcissist or prove a point. They fought back because they deserved better. Because they realized that kindness is not weakness, that compassion is not gullibility, and that sensitivity is not something to be ashamed of. In fact, these qualities are some of the most beautiful and rare gifts a person can have. Empaths are often targeted because of their ability to feel deeply, to understand others, and offer unconditional support. But what narcissists fail to understand, and what empaths eventually rediscover, is that true empathy also includes self-empathy. It means recognizing your own worth, honoring your needs, and refusing to let anyone diminish your light. And so, in the end, the empath doesn't just survive, they thrive. They step into a life where their heart is open but protected, where their love flows freely, but only toward those who truly deserve it, where their energy is used for healing, creation, and connection, not for trying to fix someone who never wanted to change. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who might benefit from hearing this truth. Healing is absolutely possible, and understanding the incredible strength of an empath's resistance is one of the most important steps toward freedom. Thank you for watching.